If the Iranian government had its way, the seed of the sacred fig would never be seen. Mohammad Rasoulof made his latest film in secret, inspired by the woman life freedom protests in 2022 that were sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini in police custody. She was known by her Kurdish name Gina and was arrested for not wearing her headscarf properly. Just before this film first premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, Rasoulof escaped on foot from Iran. Today, he lives in exile in Europe, and in Iran, a prison sentence awaits him. To discuss, director Mohammad Rasoulof is with me now in New York with his interpreter, Yante Roach. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
So, your film opens with a man, a father of daughters, a husband, and he's really excited about his new promotion as an investigator in Iran's revolutionary court, and it's a pathway to become a judge. But as he starts his job, the 2022 protests break out, and that begins to unravel his family. Where did this idea of this man, this family, this moment come from for this film?
Over the last 15 years, I've had to deal continuously with the security apparatus of Iran. So I was constantly having to meet up with judges, prosecutors, interrogators, prison officials, and so on and so forth. And a question that wouldn't leave me was, how can these men think, or rather, how can they think in a way that I cannot think? And how can they not think the way that I think? And I think it was this question really that is at the core of the idea for the film.
فکر میکنم که هسته اصلی داستان توی این سال بود. این سالها توی ذهنم بود تا اینکه بار آخری که توی زندان بودم جنبش زن زندگی آغاز شده بود.
While this question was still alive in me, I was in prison when the 2022 Women Life Freedom protests began, and trying to make sense and understand and follow what was happening out in the streets from inside the confines of the prison was a rather unique experience. And then I had a chance encounter with a senior prison official who told me in secret that he hated himself, he was thinking of taking his life, and that his children kept questioning him very harshly about his job. Why are you working in prison? Why don't you change your job? And that's where I thought it would be very interesting to tell the story of a family that has a rift of that kind.
What does the family dynamic say about Iran? Because you are watching this man who is part of the system that his daughters feel is oppressing their fellow students, themselves, and you see this mother trying to keep the family together. That family dynamic and that struggle, what is the larger message with that family?
So first of all, I should prefix that for a character like Iman, the father, it's important to note that these people are normal. They have human aspects, and often they desire to do the right thing, to be good people, as it were. But then I think the question is, what enables them to do what they do? And I think really the main issue and the principal theme of the film is sarsepurdagi, submission to power or ideology, or to religious thought, submitting yourself to letting someone else think for you and take decisions on your behalf. And this is the common aspect I've seen in all of the real people from the system that I've had to deal with.
And it really comes across in the film because you watch him start his new job with the understanding that he's going to do it right. He's going to investigate properly and then come to understand that's not what's expected of him, that he's just supposed to sign off. And then the paranoia of this place he works starts to seep into the home. But I want to ask you about the paranoia of filming the film that you're filming, because you did it all in secret. Why did you do that?
خیلی نکته جالبیه برای اینکه فکر میکنم که همیشه ترس این توهم رو به وجود میاره و فکر میکنم که
I think that's a really interesting point because in a way I think paranoia is born of fear, and of course as a filmmaking cast and crew we had to be careful, and that of course led to worries and paranoia. So for instance, if we saw a stranger turn up on set, we had to preserve this paranoia, this preoccupation to make sure who that person was before continuing. And in terms of Iman, I think, yes, he is someone who has worked for years to achieve his dream, who has done his best to take ethical decisions. And yet, when his sense of security is menaced, all of a sudden, he becomes paranoid. And from one point onwards, his gains and his ideology become mixed up. He can no longer distinguish between the two. And that's when he starts drowning.
با هم میکس شد، قاطی شد و اونجا بود که دیگه شروع کرد به غرق شدن.
And I don't want to give any spoilers away, but it is really interesting the way he starts to turn on his own family. But I want to dig deeper into the decision to do this in secret. How did you cast the film? How did you find a crew? How did you evade authorities so they didn't know what you were doing? And again, why did you make the decision that you had to do it in secret?
مجبور نبودم. این یه انتخابه که من سالها
So first of all, I should say that I was not forced to proceed this way, but it's a conscious choice I took a long time ago because I've been making underground films for many years, and that's because I don't want to kneel to censorship. But when I came out of prison this last time, I noticed that many more people from the cinema industry in Iran were much closer to me than they were before. They'd taken the decision that they wanted to resist censorship and work on more independent projects because they were sick and tired of the pressure of always having to pretend you're someone else that goes with taking part in the official Iranian cinema industry. Which of course is what everyone in society has to do. You have to show a different face to the world in order to avoid censorship and oppression. But it's very difficult. It's very difficult to be an artist in those circumstances. And so receiving all this support was really heartwarming. It was inspiring. And it also showed me that this time around, it will be a bit easier to recruit the right collaborators. So to give you an example, many women actresses had already taken the decision no longer to wear the compulsory veil on camera. And this made things easier because at another time it would have been much harder to ask actresses to take a decision that would put them in danger. But this time they'd already made up their minds. And I think on their behalf it might not even be so much a political decision as an artistic decision, in the sense that they want to show their real selves in front of the camera rather than allow censorship to turn them into liars somehow. And this reflects daily life in Iranian society itself. If you were to go to Tehran today, you would encounter tons of women who are ignoring the morality police patrols and inhabiting public spaces without the headscarf. And I think this great wave was prompted by the woman life freedom movement and has swept across Iranian society, including, of course, the cinema industry, which is a part of Iranian society.
I mean, ultimately, you left Iran. You snuck out on foot. Was it over this film that you made?
نه واقعا نمیشه گفت فقط به خاطر این فیلم.
So I can't say that I left Iran only because of this last film. It's a decision that was many years in the making, and yet it was very sudden and immediate at the same time. But I think it matured over the course of the last 7 years because I was banned from leaving the country in 2017 after making a film at the time. And And I tried very hard to stay and to keep working, and I kept working, but also to work the way I wanted to, which meant living under constant fear, pressure, and with a great deal of tension. And this last time around that I was in prison, I was also being, there were court proceedings against me relating to other matters, other films, which my lawyers predicted would lead to an 8-year prison sentence. And so I asked myself, well, now I'm here almost for 1 year, then I might spend another 8 years here. And what significance does my stay in prison take on? What does it mean? What does it symbolize?
اونجا چه معنی پیدا میکنم؟ توی زندان چه معنی دارم؟ اونجا مطمئن شدم بودن من به عنوان یه فیلمساز توی زندان.
This time around in prison, it became apparent to me that the only figure, the only role I could play whilst in prison was the role of the victim of censorship, the filmmaker who has been sacrificed by Iranian censorship. And I don't like playing the role of the victim. I think you always have to do something, have to work as a filmmaker. And when I came out of prison, I was hoping that I would receive a short prison sentence, and that would allow me to remain in Iran, to keep working in Iran. But that was not the case. Just a few days after we wrapped the shoot of The Seed of the Sacred Fig, I was sentenced to 8 years in prison. It was a final sentence. I had already appealed against it. There was no more. I could no longer appeal or do anything. And that's when I saw myself. I saw no other way but leaving the country, and I finally had to finalize the decision I'd been mulling over for the last 7 years, and especially during those last 7-8 months in prison. What is most important as a filmmaker? Is it more important to resist and remain, even if it's imprisoned, or is it more important to keep making work? And so that's a choice I took, to leave the country and make films about this.
باید رفت درباره موضوعات فیلم ساخت و من تصمیم گرفتم که یه راه دیگه ای انتخاب کنم و اونم این بود که در بیرون ایران به کارم ادامه بدم.
It must have been incredibly hard to leave your home and know that you can't go back.
Yes, that's why I tried for so many years to resist and remain, but life doesn't always pan out as you desired.
Do you think someday you'll be able to screen this film and your future films in Iran with you there?
This sort of thinking can be really quite destructive, so I try not to think about it very much, but to focus on what can I do now, today, here.
You were able to get out. Can you say how? And I know you were also able to get out some of the cast and crew as well, the younger actors who played the daughters. But 2 of the actors, Sohaila Golestani and Misagh Zareh, that play the parents, are still in Iran. Are they safe?
خب قسمت اول سوالتون
So in terms of how I left Iran, you know, when we talk about prison, we tend to think of the negative aspects, but it's important to know that it also has some positive facets, or at least it had for me, meaning that I met a number of people who told me, if you ever decide or have to leave Iran illegally, please tell us. We will help you. And so I can say that the path to freedom passed through prison. So there's so many details about the journey itself, which I'll be delighted to tell you more about one day. But I can just tell you for the time being that the first border I went to did not work out, so I had to change plans and leave Iran through a different land border. There was a lot of walking involved. There were dangerous moments. There were lots of very funny moments. And door to door, from the moment I left my home to the moment I set foot in Europe, it took 28 days.
28 days.
It's important to add this about my collaborators, especially my female collaborators, and especially the actresses in the film, is that their courage and resilience was the most inspiring and the most enabling aspect of the entire project.
Can you say more about that?
Well, for instance, they were just incredibly inspirational. Whenever we encountered a difficulty during the shoot, it was usually them who found the solution. And whenever I lost all hope and decided we've got to shut this down, it's just too risky, they were the ones who always gave me the confidence and the courage, and gave us all the courage and desire to keep going. Sohaila Golestani, who plays Najmeh, the mother, has a very strong personality in real life. She's an actress with complete self-awareness. She understands very well what she's doing. And she was able to portray this mother incredibly well.
یا مثلا ستاره ملکی
Or for instance, Sitare Maliki, who plays Sana, the younger daughter, has a very interesting personality. The moment she was contacted by my collaborators, who didn't disclose very much at all about the project, she told them immediately, if I'm going to be asked to wear the veil, forget me.
من فکر کنم که
And I think all the cast and crew have similar stories, and that what really motivated them was not making a film against the government, but making a film that enabled them to become closer to themselves.
Where does that bravery come from? I mean, it's terrifying to not just take a step that could get you in trouble, but put it on film. And there is such honesty here in your film, beyond just, like you said, the subversive message, but the private and public self, right? There's the father and mother are not, the father's not just a terrible human. He's a person trying to do the right thing. They're God-fearing. They want their daughters to do the right thing. They're dealing with generational divides. I mean, the bravery to just be themselves on film, where does it come from? Where does your bravery come from?
First of all, I should just say that I'm profoundly moved by sitting in front of a lady who has understood so many layers about my film, and by the fact that it is possible to therefore convey such complexity and depth to audiences. So all the cast and crew were perfectly aware of the dangers and risks they were taking by participating in the film, and which in fact they have been faced with since the moment the news of the film's premiere at Cannes came out. The DOP's office was raided, the sound recorder's passport was confiscated, everyone's passport was confiscated, and a really huge pressure was placed upon everyone, and this was of course orchestrated, so in order to pressurize me so that I'd withdraw the film from the main competition at Cannes. But of course no one from the cast or crew asked me to do so, and I think the courage all boils down to the fact that at the moment in Iran, the primary source of resilience and resistance is a wave led by women. In a totalitarian regime that is constantly trying to break you down on a daily basis, that is constantly attacking your dignity, your self-respect, your sense of integrity, I think the only weapon left for people is their body, but obviously their body is also their thoughts. For me, the most important question was always, what matters the most to you? Is it filmmaking, or is it freedom, or is it integrity, self-respect, dignity? And I think it's the latter. I want freedom. I don't want to make films at any costs. I don't want to make films that comply with censorship. And when you're under those circumstances, your thought is constricted, and you need to think of your priorities. And now that I'm here in the West, and when you're there, your priority is freedom. Now that I'm here, I've got different priorities, and so I can't just switch back to what animated me the most while I was in Iran.
What are your priorities now?
You know, I'm here, but Iranian society has not changed, and the country I come from follows me with its bad news every day. There are so many political prisoners, men and women, inside Iran who are paying the price for their need for freedom, and as long as I keep receiving all this news, I still belong to that place.
The film is set. You use real protest footage throughout the film. That choice, using the real interspersed with the fictional story, can you tell me about that?
وقتی از زندان اومدم بیرون و شروع کردم به نوشتن این داستان.
So when I came out of prison and started writing the treatment for this film, I had the story of a family that became trapped within its own apartment. And so the question was, what's happening outside the apartment? And of course, when I came out, I watched all these videos taken by protesters themselves and uploaded and circulated anonymously by them on social media. And these videos were truly shocking, at least in two ways. On the one hand, they showed you what oppressive and savage regime is ruling the country. And on the other hand, they showed you this incredibly courageous young generation that knows how to express its wants.
چه نسل جدید شجاع و خودبیانگره. چیزایی که میخواد داره بیان میکنه. از خودم
And then again, I knew that I told myself, while you're making this film underground in secret, how do you think you'll ever be able to shoot this kind of material on the streets? But then also I thought, in an ideal world where I were able to reconstruct these scenes, would I ever be able to recreate the same power of reality? Would I ever be able to create something of this potency? And of course, not. So I decided to intersperse these videos which had shocked me so much, had had such a strong impression on me, with this fictional story.
There's a scene in the film where the eldest daughter, Razvan, confronts her father after her friend was brutalized by the police for just being in the middle of a protest. In the scene, the father is yelling at her, saying, "Oh, why are you walking around with these sluts in the street?" And she's yelling back and confronting her dad about the system that he is a part of. Is that scene symbolic of that courage you described, that bravery that you saw in this generation?
Yes, this is when Rizvan decides to express who she is. It's as if it was the moment in which she ripped off the mask usually conserved for her public self in front of her family.
What do you know about Sohaila Golestani and Misa Ghazareh? Are they okay, as far as you know? The two main actors in your film.
همه افرادی که تو این پروژه بودن
All the cast and crew are implicated in, accused, in fact, in court proceedings on the charges of spreading corruption on earth, prostitution, propaganda against the regime, and attempts against national security. So we're waiting for the outcome of this court case. Sohaila is Golestani, who plays Najma. The mother is currently in Iran. I know that over the last few days, she had multiple interrogations, that there's a great deal of pressure placed upon her, and it is very difficult to predict what the outcome may be. Of course, what is clear is that the regime is paranoid about other filmmakers making underground films in a similar vein, and so they probably want to use our cast and crew and make examples out of them in order to dissuade anyone, to take away anyone's courage who wants to do a similar project in the future inside Iran.
Because your film is powerful.
I think this trend in cinema began many years ago, and I think it's bound to continue. I don't think it can be stopped in any way.
Director Mohammad Rasoulof, his film The Seed of the Sacred Fig is out now. Yante Roach is his interpreter. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.